Oh crap, I totally did not even send a Discord thing out. But hello everyone. We are live and I'm here with Chris and Élan, the authors of A Contract in Sulphorn and Seasons of Albadan. Thank you so much for being on my channel. And I am really quickly gonna send out a Discord thing so that we have some viewers
Of course.
up in this stream.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to be on the channel, even though we've never been before. Yeah.
How is release week going for you guys? How is the rollout going?
I think pretty well. It's been a lot of fun just to know that the book is actually out there and that people are getting to experience it. So that's been great, and then hearing people's feedback has been really wonderful too. So
Yeah,
sure that's only going to continue in these next few weeks.
yeah, it's like the freaky thing of working on this book throughout like all of last year, and then now knowing that it's just like it's on stores. Yeah, it's just kind of freaky. It doesn't feel real. Like I almost feel like when Seasons of Albadan was released, it was more of a like, oh, we're done with the book. Now it's released, and now we get to like chill. But now there's like the almost the pressure of like, oh, it's the second book in a series.
Yeah.
So it just I don't know.
It's a totally different experience than publishing the first one, and that's kind of what I've been like. Anytime somebody asks, like, "Oh, how's that going?" Like, must be so much easier doing it the second time, and it's actually a lot harder.
Yeah, it's
because when you're doing the first one, there are no expectations.
Yeah.
If you make a book, people are going to be really impressed. And like,
yeah,
with the second one, you actually have people who have read the first. They have an expectation of like what the quality should be, and you don't want to let them down. So yeah, I think like that you just get stuck in that like quagmire of like, okay, I did something good, but now like the pressure is on for this next one.
Yeah, definitely. You also, it's like in a weird way, you have like way more time to write your first book because like you have as much time as you want because you haven't debuted yet. And then your second book, people are like within like the next year, people are like, so where's book 2?
Yeah.
And they start asking.
Well, it's weird because actually book 1 took like no time almost. Well, we had it workshopped in different formats.
I was gonna say it was like probably like done in pieces over the span of several years.
Yeah, but like the actual like sitting down and writing it was like
pretty fast.
I think it was like 5 weeks, but yeah, so Foreign literally took like 2 years, like the whole time. We were just conceptualizing, outlining, writing, but yeah.
We also did a whole wedding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got married.
We got married.
That took a lot of
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I do want to add, I do have some questions about like the expectations you mentioned, Élan, like people have expectations for book 2, but I was curious because I know that you wrote like Albadan like during the pandemic, and like how is like marketing and stuff like that been different sort of obviously like post lockdown? The pandemic's not necessarily over, but you know, people are going out more. Have you been able to like, do you have any like upcoming events or stuff that people can see you in person and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's you learn a lot from Seasons of Albadan. Like obviously, whenever we first released it, it was Amazon exclusive. We went with all of that because like we didn't know any better. Then we learned about buying ISBN codes and making your book available in actual other stores besides Amazon. But yeah, in the post-pandemic world, a lot of people are doing. I mean, during the pandemic, one of the big things that happened were online conventions where people could just like buy a ticket and see authors talking online. Obviously, that's a whole different beast, from festivals and all that kind of stuff. But that's not something we really did with Albadan at all. Like besides like online marketing, like memes, some ads, just engagement online, we really didn't do much. Besides the occasional interview?
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to do a lot of in-person stuff, and I think that was just because of the time that it was still very pandemic.
Yeah, but also we were unexperienced.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah,
and it was a learning curve for sure.
It's intimidating to try to do in-person events as a first-time author. You don't have that fan base built up.
And I mean, now with the second one, we're trying to kind of get out of our comfort zone a little bit more. We're doing more interviews. We have obviously this one. We have a couple more planned for this month and beyond. In April, we're going to be at the LA Festival of Books, which is super exciting. Never done anything like that. We're actually going to be there and do some book signings. We're going to do another book signing event. Oh, we might do, depending on how the LA Festival book goes, we might do Las Vegas also in October. Not 100% yet, but that's there's a possibility.
I was already booking my ticket to Bellagio, so when you mentioned Vegas, well, that's really exciting, and congratulations on all of those things. Okay, so yeah, now I kind of want to talk about the book itself, and I love Seasons of Albadoon. It was such a twisty book, and it did sort of surprise me in so many ways. And so going into Soulforn, I'm really curious about what can readers expect from the second book in terms of like the themes that you're dealing with. Are you sort of continuing on that thematic thread, or what are you exploring in the second book?
So I think as far as thematics go, there are some really strong themes that are carried into Soulforn from Seasons of Albadoon, including sort of the environmentalism themes that were in Albadoon. Those are still very much at play in Contract and Soulforn. You kind of see that a lot in like the culmination of the story. But we introduced a lot of other themes that I don't think you really saw that much. Nice, he has a good mustache. But that I don't think you saw so much in Albadoon, or that we only touched on very briefly. So like there was kind of in Albadoon a sense of like the townsfolk versus the woodsfolk, and in a much larger city like Soulforn, we play a lot more with social class. So those are some themes that we introduce, and like the different social hierarchies are very enforced culturally in Soulforn. So we play around a lot with that. And then like our one of our main characters, his personal quest is to become a hero. And I think a lot of what we wanted the book to be about is, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And when it comes to heroism, I don't want to say that like the book is thematically about like how to be a hero, because I think that's a little too prescriptive.
Yeah.
Instead, I think what we focused on was the idea that heroism does mean different things to each individual, and we just wanted to show little vignettes of what that can look like for people, and then kind of let the audience decide which version of heroisms are closest to what they believe.
Yeah, one of the things that I was really channeling was actually Arthurian myth, because Arthurian legend is very interested in what it means to be, a hero. There are, the descriptors of what a hero is all through Arthurian myth. There's like, chivalry. There's, I think it's seven traits of a hero or something like that. So it was really about taking those and breaking them down and seeing like, what does this mean in the real world? Not in a abstract sense of like Arthurian myth. Those are very, metaphysical manifestations of what it means to be a hero. But like in the real world, what is a hero, and how does a hero act? And we use Dorvin, which is based on ARC reviewers, which are the advanced reviewers, maybe the most hated character in the book. Or at least I think some people love him, but he's very detestable. But we use him as the foil to explore what it means to be a hero, which is it's very fun. I think he's like one of my favorite characters I've ever read.
I love that. That makes me, I was already excited to read the book, but that makes me even more excited. I really enjoy characters who like challenge readers and are like unlikable sometimes, I think. And I mean, if you're, setting out to like sort of define what it means to be a hero, or define one definition of what it means to be a hero, it's sometimes easier to like say what's not a hero than to like, sort of, it's easier to go with the negative.
Right.
Yeah, we also we talk a little bit about like choice and free will, and enslavement. There's a lot in there. Maybe a lot more topically broad than Seasons of Albadoon, because Seasons was a little more focused. Oh, even that had, it talked about fatherhood, motherhood.
Yeah, I would say Seasons had a lot of different things. For such a short book, I think you guys really like wove in a lot of different aspects of like, because you talk about like industrialization and the clash of that with the natural world, but then it's also like very intimate stories of motherhood and fatherhood, like you said. So also I think Contract and Sulphorn is a lot longer than Albadoon. What was the decision behind that? And I guess you mentioned broader themes, but yeah, why the longer story this time?
I think when we are, setting out to write the stories, we never really have a sense of that it has to be a certain length or that we're trying to aim for a certain length. I think we just try to find the length that the story deserves, and however long that ends up being. But yeah, for this one, we, I think partially because they're not just little vignettes that are kind of more self-contained, we do have this like whole arc kind of thing. So it did end up being quite a bit longer. And we're going to be following these characters even more actually in the next books too, because they really haven't, some of them haven't completed that journey yet as far as we're concerned. But yeah.
I also think that one of the things that drove us to kind of make Seasons as contained as possible was also because while it was a story that we really wanted to tell, it was also kind of an experiment in self-publishing. It's much easier to just kind of write something a little bit more contained, a little bit more standalone, shorter. I mean, it really, I think by 6,000 words, it's longer than a novella. So it's just a novel. But I think we learned a lot. And but yeah, as Élan said, we didn't really set out to make a longer book. It just sort of happened. This was the story that we were trying to tell. I think one reviewer said it the best. One of our advanced copy reviewers. It was Sulphorn takes its time to tell the story that it needs to tell, and it's no more or no less than what it needed to be. And I think I appreciate that. That makes me feel better about what we wrote.
That's always, I think, as an author, what you're going for is, you want to fit the story to the content that's inside of it and not make it feel like it's dragging for people, but also not make it just rushed.
Well, I was hoping you guys were gonna like say that each book is gonna be exponentially longer. So by the 8th book, we're gonna have like a 10,000.
I'm writing book, or we're writing book 3 right now, and it's gonna be a tome.
It's gonna be a lot longer, yeah.
I'm afraid, I think because Sulphorn is actually it's more than double than Seasons by a couple thousand words. And I think book 3 might be about double the size of book 2. So I think we're getting exponentially bigger. So we'll see.
That's awesome. I love big books. As you know, big Wheel of Time fan, Malazan, Realm of the Elderling. So bring on the big books, I say.
Well, I want to say there is something like immensely satisfying about just physically holding like a large book that you've written. It feels really satisfying. So
yeah, I imagine I would carry it around all the time. I'd be
She totally does.
been doing that actually. Yeah, when I go into work and stuff, especially for like the book release week, I was just like, I'm just gonna carry this around.
As you should, as is your right. That's awesome. Also, I just wanted to take a second to say hi to everyone who is watching.
Everyone.
I hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I love characters that the authors love to write, but the readers don't particularly love to read. So many possibilities to explore. For sure. Hello.
I do want to ask you, before we move away from Seasons of Albadoon discourse, what is your favorite season in the book? I mean, and in real life. IRL
and in real life. Oh, okay, you're turning the interview on me. I have to be basic and say my favorite season is autumn or fall, because my birthday's in October, so just have to go for that. But I think my favorite season in Seasons of Albadoon, It's really hard to pick because I feel like they're all so interconnected, but I really liked the final season, the mother one. I think
Mm.
is that spring or winter? I
It's
don't remember.
summer.
Okay, yeah, that one. That one was really good. Um, yeah, it was just like it took the story in a direction, like, I had already been surprised, but then again, you like each season with each turn of the season, I was so surprised, and yeah, I'm just constantly, like, astounded by how short Albedo is, but, like, how much you achieve in that small space. Um, so yeah.
I'm glad
Okay,
you
I
like
had
that one.
another question.
That's a rare answer. I feel like most people always either say the one
Winter.
autumn or winter. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yeah. I think spring is the rarest of all.
Yes, which is my personal.
That's her favorite, but I think not a lot of people like spring.
Is that the one about the brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one is really bleak. Like, really bleak. It depresses me to think about it, but it is really good, so I think that's valid. Um, okay. Okay, I had another question about, I know you both have, like, a little bit of a background in film, and if you had to pick a director and a composer to adapt the Eighth Chant universe into a TV or a movie series, who would you pick, and which would you do? Would you do a TV or a movie series?
Ooh. TV series would be kind of interesting. I didn't even think of TV, but when it comes to film, I mean, even whenever I was, when we were writing the first draft of Seasons of Albedo, it was always like just channeling that Studio Ghibli energy.
Yes.
Mm.
And I think like I always picture it as just animated instead of live action.
Yeah,
like going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, Princess Mononoke is like top 3 favorite film of all time, and that was something that I was channeling with just the spirit, the life energy of the woods, the cycle of nature, that sort of thing. And also, I mean, Princess Mononoke is very much about in not necessarily industrialization versus nature, but definitely about the human imprint upon nature and how mankind can't help but be at war with the force of nature. And yeah, that is something that was really channeled. I don't like, when you say it out loud, it almost sounds like we really took a lot of the themes, but it was very, I mean, it's a huge inspiration. I saw Mononoke when it first came out in theaters, and it's stuck ever since. So
those are fundamental themes for the human condition for a
True.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're gonna take inspiration, taking inspiration from Ghibli is like a good place to look at. And yeah, I think I've always thought that Albedo and like this whole world would make a really lovely Ghibli adaptation too. It's just so perfect. I think we should get in contact with
Yeah, we should.
Miyazaki.
Get him on the line. Well, I mean,
I
also
just want him to read it. I would love to give him like a translated copy or something, just because I think he'd like the story.
I think so too. I think he would actually like it. I also, the fact that it's vignettes, I think, would lend itself to animation, but more so than film.
Yeah, Contract and So Forth, I could see being done as live action, as like a full thing, but
it could still be animated.
I could still see it animated.
I could still see it animated. I just love
I
animation as a genre, especially for fantasy. I think that there's kind of an obsession over if it's not live action, it's not real or legitimate. Whereas like there's so much good animation out there that's fantasy that really showcases that it's the best way to show the genre, in my opinion. I mean, Lord of the Rings did a great job, obviously, in live action, sure, but there are some things that just look better animated than
Yeah, I agree.
And speaking of another director who agrees with us, who I also think we would both suggest as someone who would potentially do Seasons of Albedo or A Contract and So Forth, would be Guillermo del Toro.
Oh yeah,
is very much, especially like now in his career, centered on the idea of elevating animation as a film medium to get the respect that it deserves.
Yeah, Pinocchio was great. He's doing a new one. He's doing a new animated. Like, I think that's kind of his focus now, and I love it. I respect it. Animation needs to be, not just a category at the Oscars. It needs to be
not seen as like a kids thing.
Bo Kelly says, "Can we all just agree Donovan is a brat who should get pushed off of a cliff?"
I
I
have to
think
say, I love how just like we've gotten a lot of like people saying different things about the book as far as our advanced reviewers,
mhm.
but they almost all say the exact same thing about Donovan, which is like he's a piece of shit or like a little shit, you know, like that phrase has popped up so many times.
Yeah.
I just loved writing him because I would just get annoyed.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh my God, oh, I hate him. Keep going.
I think it's a mark of a good story where it makes you feel really strongly. Even if it's like a strong negative emotion, it's
Yeah.
still good. Ooh, Mark mentioned if you guys have ever seen Song of the Sea or Wolf Walkers, which are animated films from a
Yeah.
studio called Cartoon Saloon.
Yeah,
Uh,
they did Breadwinner and
Oh, I
yeah,
love Breadwinner. Yeah.
yeah, Song of the Sea's great. Secret of Kells, yeah,
Yeah, Secret Tales is good.
yeah, yeah. That'd be a cool
That
style
would be a cool
too.
studio too, yeah.
You have a really
yeah.
cool style. But yeah,
Yeah.
as you said, I mean, we do have a background in film. We both went to film school. I know, roll your eyes. We both went to film school. We worked in the film industry, quote unquote. We
Yeah.
worked on quite a bit of things. We both have a background in screenwriting. In fact, I mean, we mention it all the time. Seasons of Obladon originally was a screenplay. Winter used to be a short film that we completed about 70% of.
Yeah, we did not finish it.
We did not finish it, but it was yeah. So you know that was also always part of the equation is just cinematically looking at scenes and trying to describe them as in a cinematic way and yeah.
Yeah. I wonder. Oh, sorry. I just wonder if that's why, like, Seasons of Albedo is such a like tight novel, and you managed to pack in so much because it was a film. You kind of had to. You're working with the constraints of that. But yeah, what were you gonna say, Élan?
It would help a lot, actually. Yeah, like I would say, it helps to tinker with something for that long and over that span of time because, like like he was saying, Albedo seemed like it came together really quickly, but when you actually, if we think about how much time was spent just on like the conceptualization of it, it was several years
Yeah, I think it was
of just really slow, like plotting kind of work. So like by the time it coalesced, we'd already approached it from several different angles and we've been looking at these stories for so long. And so like the things that needed to change to make it better were really obvious.
Mm.
So, my suggestion, if you really want to write a great book, just spend 5 years on it. And
I think I was trying to think like the script for Winter because the short film was just the winter part with Handel and the tree. It was actually called Tree of Folktale. And it was I think 2015 is when we wrote the script. Yeah.
Wow.
2015.
So yeah, definitely been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And like even if we weren't actively working on it, it was something that was always just kind of in the background or that we were thinking about. So I think that definitely helped. And we didn't have that advantage with A Contract in Solforeign, which was a really fun kind of experience. It was a little bit more like it's easier to write ourselves into corners and then have to figure out how to get ourselves out.
Yeah, it wasn't a story that we thought about for that long. It was just a story that came to us and we were just like, we want to set it into, I mean, it could have been set anywhere, but it was important to us that it was set in the same world as Albedo, with the same magic system and same overarching themes. But yeah, it was we didn't have that safety net of these are things that we thought about for a long time. No, we just kind of experienced the story as it went along, and like we would get to a chapter and then just realize, oh, is this where this is going? I think so, and then we just kept going with it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is right. This feels good.
So I would say they were two very different writing experiences as far as the books, and then also as far as our film background, I would say like you can see a lot of that in the writing, but I also think part of why we like writing novels is because we both find the screenwriting process be very fun, but a little bit restrictive. And there's something really cool about not having to tie everything to visual details in writing a novel. You can really explore very abstract kind of things that have to do with like touch and feel and all these other sensory kind of experiences that are really cool. And you get to be very kind of experimental, which is something that I think people will notice between Albadone and Sulphorn, that we we kind of do experimental things with our prologues a lot.
Yeah.
The prologue in book 2 is from the first point of view. No, it's sorry, it's second person. Second person.
Yeah.
Yeah, second person. Yeah.
And it's
I
very
love
abstract, it's very weird, and I think we're gonna keep kind of doing that with the books and making the prologues of everything something that's like a little bit different or a little, you know.
Yeah, that's like your space to experiment. I like that. That's really cool. So I did want to ask if you can read Sulphorn without having read Albadone, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can. I would say it's more fun if you have read Seasons of Albadone, just because there are Easter eggs in there that you're not going to catch otherwise.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, there are characters that return, specifically one character that returns that is, it's probably more fun to know what they were up to in Albadone, you know, than just reading it, like without giving too much away. There's he kind of retells some of the events of Albadone, but from his point of view, and it's kind of messy and kind of incorrect and inconsistent, and you only know that having read Seasons of Albadone. Stuff like that.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
I love that. I saw this like thing on Pinterest the other day about how like it's like so unrealistic in fantasy series for characters to like perfectly recount historical events, because like in real life no one ever knows exactly. Like I couldn't tell you the war. I know World War II happened, but could I tell you exactly how it all went down? So I love that. That's so cool.
There's actually a lot of that.
Oh, so much.
Yeah, because we've got the main character of the book, Valen, is, you know, this creature that's lived for centuries and centuries, and so a lot of like the book is people asking her like, so what was this historical event like, and her just being like, I don't know. I mean, I was like around. I wasn't doing that, you know.
Why? How should I know? I know the broad strokes of it, but how should I know how it actually went down? But then she'll tell you a personal anecdote of her meeting a king thousands of years before, and she recalls that perfectly because it was something she experienced. But big histories, I mean, ultimately those are just things that just are in the past, and you know, they're swept away to the sands of time. Whereas what really matters are the personal anecdotes, the stories. We even have a holiday in this book, Leper's Day, that has a history that is. It was kind of taken a little bit from some of the holidays that I'm originally from Italy. Some of the very regional holidays, but also mixed a little bit with Thanksgiving, in the sense that there's a history of the holiday that we tell, and then there's the real history of the holiday that is maybe a little bit darker, maybe a little bit, maybe a point of shame for a specific culture. And that's kind of something that we play with in Sulphorn. There's a big holiday party thing that happens at the end, and there's the story that they tell, and then there's this is actually what happened and why we have this celebration.
I love that. That's really cool. Yeah, I often say that fantasy is like one of the best ways to explore like real life issues, and that's like the perfect example of that. I know, Élan, you don't read a ton of fantasy, and I'm curious about how do you approach like writing fantasy? I'm sure you're familiar with the genre and stuff like that, but I feel like you probably bring a lot of different ideas to Chris, who does read a lot of fantasy. How does that sort of mesh?
Yeah, one thing that I think is kind of good to have is it's nice to have, you know, one person who's very familiar with the tropes of the genre, and then someone else who's not as familiar with the tropes of the genre, or just, you know, like the major works of the genre, because some things that will kind of bother him as seeming derivative, I can make a really good case for like we should still keep them, because not everyone has read those major works and are going to immediately associate it with that thing.
Yeah.
And the context that we're using it in is like, it makes sense for that too. So I'm like, one of the things, there's this group called the Blue Scarabs in the Contract and So Foreign. They feature very prominently, and we went back and forth a lot between ourselves about whether or not we were going to call them the Blue Scarabs, because the like scarab beetle, I guess it's something that has been used in different fantasy books, and particularly a couple, like, or one in particular that I guess is very famous. And he thought that there were some similarities and some parallels there, that he was really worried about being called a copycat. And I was able to, make the case from an outsider's perspective of, like, if you're not really familiar with that, like, I don't think this fits with our story that we're trying to tell. There's a reason why we chose that particular thing that has nothing to do with it just being a fantasy trope.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that can kind of, you need that outside perspective of someone who isn't constantly worried about, like, did this idea come from me or did it come from these books that I've read?
Yeah, that's one of the big, my big faults is, I mean, having read so much fantasy and currently reading so much fantasy, I'm constantly like inundated with those tropes and those stories. And I mean, there's tropes that every fantasy author uses over and over again, and we don't get tired of reading them. So those are the ones where you're just kind of like, whatever, like everyone does this. But then there are some that are, hyper specific, and she kind of talks me into keeping them. And I think ultimately that's really great. And also, I mean, I think what she brings to the table too is a lot of the character work. I'm very, I want to say I'm very world focused and very, big picture plot focused. I know where the series is going to end up, but she's very good with interpersonal stuff and character work and character arcs. I think that's like one of the big things she brings to the table.
Yeah, the other thing I think too is because I don't read a lot of fantasy literature, and the stuff that I do read is more it's fiction that's written almost like from a nonfiction perspective, very realistically based. I am not used to, as a reader, having to accept complex like magic systems that aren't fully explained. So whenever you're working on the book or something, if there's something that's kind of left in a way where, like, most fantasy readers would be like, oh yeah, sure, that thing works that way, and I'm not going to ask too many questions. It bothers me, and I need to know the rules. So like, a lot of what I will do is,
she broke our magic system.
I broke our. That's what I was talking about. Like when we were writing seasons or a contract in So Foreign, we ended up writing ourselves into a corner at one point because of me. Because I rules, and the rules need to change now. And now what are we going to do? And like, it has to be like fully explained. And I think I push us on that more than someone who's used to just reading fantasy all the time might.
What is it called whenever it's like is this soft magic when it's
soft hard magic systems?
Like originally it was kind of a soft magic system, but the more we wrote and the more she kept breaking the magic system, we had to sit down and say, okay, what are the rules? What is going on? So we're not gonna, we might not explain them in the book, like didactically where someone teaches you what the magic is, or we don't have an Ars Arcanum a la Brandon Sanderson at the end. But we do have the rules. We know what the rules are. We had to sit down and actually like put them pen to paper and figure it out, because otherwise, when the magic is so intricately part of the story, you kind of have to sit down and do it. And that's all her. She likes to break magic, I guess.
Well, you can break things if you know how it works. So it's good to know how it works. And yeah, I think about, talking about tropes, I can't speak to this as a writer, but just as a reader, I love tropes and I hate tropes because, if you do a trope that I love well, I'm going to love your book. But there's nothing I hate more than just opening up a book and it being a Lord of the Rings copycat. So I totally see the sort of the back and forth in terms of like keeping tropes in and all of that. But we have a question from the chat. The people are asking about Mother Adriel.
Oh wow. How much can we say without spoiling? I mean, she exists. She exists within the world, and
and
She is around. She's around doing stuff, and she's there. She's hanging out.
You will see more of her in the following books. That's definitely going to be happening. You may even see her if you look hard enough in this book. And so forth.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, it's I love Mother Adriel. She's great.
She's a girl
she was
boss.
very fun to write. Yeah,
very, very fun.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, that's the weird thing about now being on book 2 is, am I allowed to spoil book 1? Like, it's been 2 years. I don't think I am. I don't know.
I think you, maybe not in this stream, but I think maybe in other spaces you're allowed to spoil.
Right. It's kind of the weird thing about, like, discussing my own book. I constantly like think about that. I'm like, should I spoil it? I mean, it's obviously not big enough to, like, obviously if you're talking about Wheel of Time, Eye of the World, that's been out for years, and it's also big enough that, if you spoil a couple things, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? It's been out for forever. But like our book, it's maybe a smaller audience.
Yeah.
So like I want to say most people that are watching my tweets or whatever have not read Seasons of Albaton.
Yeah, it's a hard line to follow, to toe. Is that how that word phrase goes?
Yeah, toe the line.
Yeah. I'll let you figure that out as the authors. I'm not going to give you any answers there. But yeah, I wanted to ask how many books is the Eighth Chant series going to be? And so this book, these first 2 books are kind of discrete, but I think you mentioned that going forward, they're going to be more like tied in. So how is that all going to shake out?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is before I even wrote Seasons of Albaton, I wrote another book, or part of another book, that was like this Game of Thrones style political intrigue, type book. And that never went anywhere. It was more of a writing exercise. And also something that I always went back to and edited and changed and whatever. And now with book 3, we realized that that's the book we're going to cannibalize and grab parts out of and Frankenstein to create the 3rd book in the Eighth Chant series. So the writing is going very smoothly and pretty well so far. We're hoping to have a shorter release window between 2 and 3.
Definitely.
Not 2 years, maybe 1 year. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's very
I think
realistic.
it's possible. Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half at the most. Like we're not trying to do a whole wedding, and that's gonna literally free up an entire year.
A wedding. Nobody tells you. Yeah.
We wrote a contract and so forth, and I feel like in a year, and then we just spent an extra year getting married, so that's why it was 2 years.
Yeah. Nobody tells you that.
We were working on it the whole time.
Getting married, it's a big thing. Also, I mean, our wedding was also canceled twice due to the pandemic.
Yeah,
we were gonna get married in 2020, but yeah, that's another story.
Right, like I decided to DIY most of the decor.
We built everything.
That was my fault.
Yeah.
Like there are ways to get married that don't take so much time, and we did not do those. So.
But to your question, how long is the series going to be? It's going to be about 5 books. Those are the books that we have in our mind, and it's always been Seasons of Albaton and A Contract in Solforn as the standalone intros to the world, and then a following trilogy that you kind of have to, read.
They're all going to be very.
Ooh, I love that. I love a good like trilogy within a series as a Robin Hobb fan.
Yeah.
Love that.
Book 3 can be treated as another, like a book 1 to a series. But Seasons of Albaton and Contract are pretty.
So than others, though.
Yeah. I mean, book 4 and 5 are gonna be sequel books to 3.
Okay.
But Seasons and A Contract are standalones that can be read independently. Even though you should read them, together. They're nice. It's a good story.
We have a question about how much time. So I think like in terms of like the in-world timeline, will the series cover?
That's a really cool question.
That is a really cool
already there is a little bit of time because like between Season and A Contract and so forth, there's a little bit over a year, like a year and a month. So
Yeah,
it's
good
very
time jump.
short. They talk about what happened in Albadone, as if, it's kind of like the news got there, and everyone's discussing, oh, this happened in Albadone just about a year ago. So it's
Mhm.
kind of the fallout of all that. If you've read Albadone, you know what I'm talking about. But as far as the whole series,
Well, and then like the
that's a
epilogue,
spoiler. Right? There's an epilogue that takes place.
there's a time jump at
Yeah.
the very end too.
Yeah, it takes place
Okay.
5 years later.
Technically,
Yeah.
the book it's 1 year after Albadone, but then it's also like further too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, okay.
no spoilers.
Yeah.
There's a time jump at the end.
Whereas book 3 is going to take place, I guess we can kind of say, since it's kind of a start of a brand new trilogy, it's 6 years after Contract and So Thorn.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
1 year after the epilogue of A Contract and So Thorn. And then from there on, it's probably going to span a couple years. It's not going to be, very long from book 3 to the end.
Interesting. And you said you know how the series is going to end and all of that. That's super cool.
Yeah, we're very excited to get there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hold on to the spoilers for quite some time. I imagine that must be like really infuriating as an author to like have it all up in your head and like not people are always asking you questions and badgering you about it and you're like I can't say
The
anything.
worst thing is like when we've come up with some ideas where there are like some moments that I know are gonna be like my favorite moments in the series or my favorite things, and they haven't happened yet, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah, same.
Where
You've
like,
got to
I
write
can
them.
picture it so like vividly and like how satisfying that's going to be for people to read, and like I just want to share that with people, but it takes time.
That's awesome. Well, before I let you guys go, I'm just curious. What are you guys reading right now? What's on your nightstand and what are you into currently?
Currently I'm reading Mistborn, Era 1. That was something that I never read before, and I just kind of wanted to experience. Where Brandon Sanderson started.
Mm.
The only thing I ever read by him were the last Wheel of Time books and Way of Kings, which I loved. Mistborn Era 1, didn't love it as much. It's fun. It's got some cool stuff. The magic is great. Book 3 is probably my favorite of the 3 so far. It's very good. I'm very much enjoying the ending. Besides that, I'm reading, I've got Kindred by Octavia Butler on audiobook, and it's fantastic. Everyone should read that book. And then I'm also reading just kind of on Libby, just a library book. I'm reading The Great Gatsby, which is a book that I read that in high school, and I didn't like it very much. So I was just like, I think it's one of your favorite books.
Oh, I really like it. You've kind of inspired me. So I haven't read This Side of Paradise, which is like my favorite F. Scott Fitzgerald in so long. And since he's started to reread that, I've kind of been thinking like maybe I should reread This Side of Paradise. That would be fun.
The Great Gatsby is great. It's so well written. It's so fun. So I usually read one book at a time, but I think Mistborn is just kind of. I don't want to say it's slogging me, but like to read 3 books back to back in the same world, it is kind of, it takes a lot out of you. So I wanted to read something more classical, I guess.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I am currently reading Principles of Real Estate. Very fascinating book. I've been studying to get my real estate license. So that's been most of what I've been doing, and like reading real estate law, which is not fun.
Very dry.
So yeah, if you guys have some suggestions, I would love. I do want to take a break before we start really zoning in on the 3rd book, because once I do that, I don't really read much when I'm working on the books. But I try to give myself time to like read something between. So if anybody has any suggestions, like let me know. I've been thinking of taking a look at Poppy Wars. I know that's like kind of like dark and gritty and stuff, but I kind of like those books. So
yeah, Poppy
Wars.
Wars.
I like Chinese history. So like if anybody has suggestions that are in those kind of veins, let me know.
I really like Lavinia by Ursula K. Le Guin. Just gonna throw that out there. It's kind of like historical fiction. It's retelling of the Aeneid or I don't know if it's a retelling of the Aeneid, but it just expands on Lavinia's story from the Aeneid. And she knows Lavinia is Aeneas's wife, but she like has no speaking lines in the Aeneid. So if you're into the historical vibe, I'm gonna throw that one out there.
Yeah.
And I love Ursula K. I only ever read Left Hand of Darkness, and that was fantastic.
We do have one question that I want to get to. Do you have titles for all of the books planned?
We have title for the 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
5, I still no title. Still unsure.
Well,
yeah, title for book 3. Yeah, we did a little bit in our newsletter, which, by the way, if you go to our website, marché-warman.com, it'll tell you subscribe to the newsletter. You should subscribe. We do it's once a month on the first of every month. We give away little tidbits, little pieces, like chapters of the book randomly. We do giveaways. We talk about world lore, like we break down the runestone system, the magic system, stuff like that.
You have a recommendation, Élan, P. Jelly Clark.
Okay.
Thank you, Clara.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, before we go, you can purchase A Contract in Solforn and Seasons of Albaddon on Bookshop, but also wherever you buy books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, it's on Kindle, and I believe the audiobook for Seasons of Albaddon is on Audible. And do you have any news about? Do you have any news about the audiobook for Contract in Solforn?
Yeah, it's currently being recorded, planning for early April release. We actually hired a friend of ours, Dina, who's a great voice actress, and she's doing a great job with it.
All right. Can't wait for that. Thank you, Chris and Élan, for joining me. Congratulations on your new book. And when is book 3 coming out?
We would love for it to take around a year. So
early next year, maybe.
Early next year, hopefully. I mean, that would be great.
It's such a process. I mean, you got to write it, you got to hire the artist, you got to hire a city map artist.
And this one is like probably going to be twice as long. So, you know, it might be more of like the middle of next year. But I definitely think sometime in next year is when it'll come out. I don't see us taking another 2 years to write it. I don't think we have any major life events that are going to.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's kind of the.
Sorry, were you going to say?
I was just going to say that's kind of the horror of the life of an author is that like you can't take time to celebrate a book being released because you're working on the next one. So it's like, yeah. But hey, we released a book and we're happy about it, and it's a great book, and you should buy it.
Yay! Good job. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Red.